Bakit walang... Good morning, guys. But I have to check because as if that my camera is not working again. It's amazing. Every time, you know, I'll do it, there's something wrong. I have to go back to my StreamYard. And setting, I don't know what happened. I take it out. Automatic art shift video for comments and banner. Camera. There it is. Oh, I hope it's on. Show in advance. There it is. Hi guys. It's it's really bad because the reflections of the sun. I don't know what can I do with it. I'm supposed to put something there at the top so that it's not gonna be with my computer. I don't know what can I do. I think I have to put an umbrella or something. Sorry guys. See? Oh God. Just a minute. Darling, I said they can't see my face. I need to have something here. Come here. See. Yeah, I know, but was I'm gonna put an umbrella. See?
Well, do you want me to bring your umbrella?
And put the umbrella there or something. Just sorry guys, because I'm already live and I can't do anything. Sorry guys, I have to fix it first because I can't really see my face because it's too much sun. Okay, I'm gonna wait a minute. Go to the Tango. Okay, closest sound when you press. Oh, sorry. Just a minute, guys. Okay, I'll be back. I just have to fix something. There. Hey, now you can see me. Still can't. Huh? Minute. Ha?
That help?
I don't know yet. Oh shit. Can I hold on to the phone?
Huh?
Hold on to that. Have a look.
No?
Don't know why. Something wrong with my computer or something. There it is, there. Yeah, it's okay now, darling. It's fine. Don't stress.
Okay, Keish.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, guys. Actually, I think I can't go live today. It's something wrong with my computer. I'm gonna stop this and I just I'm gonna end it.
You want to go on that break yet?
No, I still gonna do it, darling, but I have to record it. No, that's fine. God. I don't know what's wrong with my computer, guys. It's something happened. Okay. I'm gonna go to my YouTube. Just a minute, guys. Okay. Just a minute, guys. Okay. YouTube. A minute, guys. 10 minutes. But guys, 10 minutes. Okay. Just pause. Okay. Share. 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 Hello guys, I'm trying to adjust my computer, and at the moment, what's this? I'm learning already how to at least get into it. And what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna speak. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna use my headphone. I'm gonna use my headphone so that I could hear people on the other side. Sorry guys, I'm still adjusting to there. Okay. See, I'm just doing it myself now. Yeah. Uh, but what happened is seems like it's dark on my see there. Your story. Just a minute, okay guys. I just have to Goodness. Okay. Mm. And at the moment, I can do the, what do you call that, the paangat, because I'm not, capable of doing it myself at the moment. All I have to do is just, I'm gonna do the one that I'm used to doing, like my books and, okay, read my book. Just a minute, guys. Just be patient with me, okay? Okay. Just turn it down. Back to the channel. There. No, just like it. Just a minute, guys. Okay. I'm trying to organize myself here, guys, and I know that Stu is watching now, but at the moment I'm also trying to check if I could share this on Facebook, and I'm gonna, my goodness. Okay. Yes, I should. Yeah, we're here. We're in. I'm sharing it now. Okay, guys, from time to time, I'm gonna stop and this and answer all your question, and also if there's anything you would like to, you know, uh, to message me or remember. And for 2 days now, I would like you to join me, and also if you want to give some donation or something, or send a super chat, so that super chat or super sticker, so that you could like join our raffles by February 19. All you have to do, just send it, or so that I could recognize your name, and this is the one that I'm gonna put in the raffle draw for the 50 square meter in February 19. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and like this one, I'm gonna have a look so that I could join myself. I could join into my raffle draw. Uh, there. Uh,
Does that work?
I'm gonna eat it here, darling.
Okay, well, I got it cold because I didn't know when you wanted to eat it.
Okay.
So you want me to warm it up for you?
Yeah, yes, please, darling. Yeah. At least it's blocking the heat. It's, I'm gonna, just a minute, guys. So here, guys, I'm gonna, magpapalipad ako eh. Papalipad, kaya maglalagay ako ng, kasi what you're gonna do, what I'm doing, if you don't have any, if you don't have any, because the YouTube is asking your card details or GCash, and what you're gonna do is just fill up your card. This is what I'm doing now. I'm trying to, send something, but they're asking for a card number. I'm gonna put my card number now so that I could like, join the raffle draw. Uh, 5, 2, 6, 4, 6, 0, 0, 6, 8, 9, 4. Okay. 9, 6. Let's see if it's gonna work. I think it's working. Yeah, yay! Can you see? Oh, thank you, darling. Yeah, I'm gonna eat some. Guys, my breakfast. My husband bought me some fish. I'm gonna have to eat here in front of you. See what happened, darling? See, I'm live here and also answering their question at the same time. So it's a bit, it's a bit hard for me. I think it's 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Philippines. Oh, mahaba pala. There. I don't know what happened, guys. It's just get out. There. See the top? I'll have a look. What's in there? Okay. Yeah, that's all you have to do. Just just send the super chat, and then you could already join the raffle draw on February. What do you call that? February 19. But every time you do it, you have to fill up your tank. It's amazing. Let's have a look. Let's have a look, guys. If I have to do it there, you could see me, but if I have to go on this side, you can't see me. Oh. Is it this better? Yeah, it's much better. I'm gonna have my breakfast while we're waiting for some people to come in. I'm having a vegetable fish. Vegetable with egg. And I have also blended coconut juice and some of my ingredients to beautify my skin. Mm. Coconut milk. Sorry, coconut milk. 176. Some guys, okay? 66107. 66907. my breakfast. Guys, I'm gonna do it again because it doesn't go through. Hi Darwin! Ako, nandiyan na naman yung pamangkin ko sa Canada. Wala siguro ginawain mag-abang sa akin. Tinig ka Darwin ng kwento, Darwin. My nephew in Canada.
And
Yes, darling.
in the one in Ontario or the Edmonton?
The one Ontario in
Oh.
Edmonton.
Oh, Edmonton.
I don't recognize him before because he's like doesn't have any clothes because, and also it's very small. Now I know it's him. I almost finished. I just to finish my eating, and then I'll talk to you. Okay, darling. Yeah, I know. You're from Dumaraw. O talaga? Siyempre, alam ko, Darwin. Anak ni Ali. Gan. Yeah, I'm done. Okay. I'm just trying to adjust my PayPal account so that I could like you know oh God, let's keep going. Tired of it. Tinatanong ni Edwin ano. Sabi ni Darwin, shout out Darwin, sabi niya, mag-YouTube daw tayo para makatulong tayo sa mga mahihirap. That's right. Tama ka, Edwin. That's right. That's right. Kaya nga para magkapera tayo, ni Darwin. Okay guys, ang ano natin ngayong araw is I have to finish my the book that I wrote and it's already been published sa Amazon tsaka sa Lulu. Ngayon, kung gusto niyo po bumili ng libro, nag-iipon na ako para sa mahihirap. Nag-iipon na daw si Darwin para sa mahihirap. Dami na siguro yung pera. Sabi ni Darwin, nag-iipon na daw siya para sa mga mahirap. Thank you, Darwin. Uwi tayo sa Dumaraw. Kaya magpatayo ka ng bahay doon sa resort. Sabi ko nga Tsaka Darwin, sumali ka sa raffles para manalo ka ng 50 square meter na lote doon sa lupa ko sa sa resort sa Murong sa Antipolo. Maganda kaya doon. Nakapunta na doon sino ba nakapunta doon taga Dumaraw? Wala pa ata. Mga Bifinosa lang sa mother side ko nakapunta doon. Yung iba hindi pa nakapunta Okay guys, ngayon kagabi nag-record ako ng isang almost 2 hours tapos nalaman ko naka-off pala yung sound. Kaya hindi ko marinig yung kaya nagla-live na lang ako ngayon kasi para madali. Ito kasi mga sinulat ko kasi ito, ang portion. Ngayon, ang babasahin natin ngayon yung survival instinct. Tapusin natin yung survival instinct, guys. Okay? So, dali kunin ko lang, guys, ha. So, ang haba ko nito. Survival instinct. Kasi mas madali ata magbasa ng English kaysa Tagalog. Kasi yung Tagalog, parang nahirapan ako magbasa kasi ang translation, na-translate ko sa Pilipinas, parang hindi siya masyadong na-translate ng mabuti. Kaya parang nahirapan ako magbasa. Kaya ang gagawin ko ngayon guys, basahin ko na lang sa English. Para madali kong basahin kasi pagka sa Tagalog nahirapan akong magbasa. Tingnan natin kung hanggang saan tayo ngayon para at least mga 2 hours. 2 hours tayo para nabasa ko ng ibang portion nitong books na to, pero umpisa natin sa simula para magiging accurate ang natin kasi I have to read the book now in English instead of Tagalog. At nahirapan ko ako magbasa ng Tagalog kasi kino-compare ko kasi yung I'm comparing the Tagalog I'm reading into English, kaya it's much better for me to read it in English. Okay, guys? Magsimula na po tayo. Survival Instinct. A novel based on a true event by Maria J. Ryerson. Huwag na natin basahin yung mga copyright. But the book has a copyright. All rights reserved to no part of this book to be reproduced. Yun na lang, basahin natin. Author's note. Everyone's face tell a story. I can look at the person and tell if they are drinking enough water, if they smoke, if they spend time in the sun, and what position they most often sleep in. No, I'm not a detective. I'm a beauty therapist. But that's not really who I am. It's just what I do. Growing up in the Philippines, I didn't dream of having a career in this industry, and I certainly didn't believe that I ever be living in Australia. It's a miracle that I'm still alive. I should have been dead long time ago, but I'm jumping ahead. That's no for beauty treatments and for telling stories. On the following pages, I will share the part of my life with you. I have changed the names to protect the identities of the people involved. I hope this book will be an inspiration, especially to women who also knew that this is how it's like to sacrifice their lives for their family and loved ones. By Maria J. Ryerson. And this book, it was finished and published in October 17, 2016. And it's now in Amazon, Lulu, and it's also now at the National Bookstore in the Philippines. And if anyone would like to buy the book, I still have almost 3,000 copies in the Philippines. And whoever subscriber who would like to have it, just message me. so that I could send you the pre-copy of the book. Okay, guys, thank you. Dedication. I dedicate this book to the memory of my mother, Clarita Bipinosa Alejandro Herrero. My father Jaime Hapitan Herrero, who were taken from my family too early. Author acknowledgement. Writing this book is the accomplishment of my dreams, and I am so glad that I finally came true. Surviving in this world was not easy for me. It was a hard road. I am thankful for the people that have helped me along the way. To my wonderful and loving husband, lover, and friends, Fred G. Ryerson, thank you for loving me, protecting me, helping me raise our children, and providing them with a good life and education. I love you with all my heart, my darling husband. To my beloved children, Anna May, Carlo, Jaime, Crystal, and Crystal May, my stepchildren, Joe and Kate. You inspired me to go on living and continue to give my life a meaning. Also, I thank you for my beautiful grandchildren, Taya, Braycee, Coleby, Tash, Jake, Ella, Mason, Mateo, and we have another member in our family, which is Chance and Sophia. And I know there's many more to come. To the biological parents of my children and stepchildren, I thank God that we met. Without you, I would not have these wonderful children to raise and give me inspiration to not only work hard, but to also survive under the worst circumstances of my life. I would like to thank my family and friends who helped me raise my four children, my parents, my brother, Jonathan, and my four sister, Clarissa, Jimmy, Jiminy Adele, and my cousin, Lani Gregory, and my sister-in-law, Ruth. And also for the nannies that who helped me also raise them, I thank them very much. To the two people who helped me finish this book, my best friend, Melissa Eckhart, and my nephew, Thomas A. Ryerson. Writing my life story is sharing it with you both was very rewarding for me, and I thank you very much. To my friends around the world who have been by my side when I needed the most, thank you. I love each and every one of you. You will be in my heart forever. Maria J. Ryerson. Now we have to read the chapter 1 of the book. Let's see how long we could stay reading it. Actually, I would like to finish so that, the people who is, listening to it, it will continue watching it and they could go back to it later on. Okay, guys? Chapter 1. After my father, Horacio Alejandro Biga, died on August 23rd, 1987, my mother, Miranda Legaspi Castillo, had to move on for us all. For Miss Sofia Vega, my brother Flavius, and our four sister Hannah, Ella, Eliza, and Chelsea, and her two grandchildren, Franco, Diego Vega, and Holy Bella. One day at the house where we lived, 3 months following the death, I noticed my mother seated on the wooden chair by the window, looking out at the vast morning sky, smiling. She waved me over to join her and keep her company. I walk over to her and give her a kiss on the cheek. Her face seems cool from the misty morning air. Dewdrops from the trees which surrounded our house drip into my skin. She took my hands and asked me to sit next to her, pointing to a lawn chair nearby on the veranda. As I moved the chair closer to her, I noticed that had not changed over the past month. She was still beautiful. I smiled and said, "Mama, what are you thinking? Tell me what is on your mind right now. You look so happy today. Compared to the last little while, I'm just wondering why." Still smiling, she looked over at me and replied, "I just remember a love story, and it's so beautiful. It's a story of your father and I. I saw his hazel eyes twinkle in the brightness of the morning sun as she mentioned me to sit even closer to her so that she could hold my hands as she talked. With her other hand, she patted her heart and gave me a look to utter satisfaction, saying, "I will tell you how a younger version of this woman, which is her, fell in love with a man named Horatio. She was beautiful, even after all these years, with her signature long, luxurious hair flowing past her shoulder. I noticed some gray spot as she moved her head while she spoke. I, I could tell from her passion of wanting to share her story with me that she really missed my father. My own heart ached a little for her. She gracefully smiled at me, took a moment to gather her thoughts, and then began to talk as if things were happening again. From the beginning, the first time your father saw me, his eyes followed me as I walked towards him and then slowly passed him by. My hair fell down my back and swayed in time with my hips as I moved past him. I could feel his stares. It was so obvious. I almost laughed at him, but held it in until I will pass him, leering eyes. Some girls who stood near your father decided to tease him. They said, "Who is that Horatio?" Well, of course, they knew me because they were my girlfriend and cousins. He had been talking nonstop about me ever since he arrived in our village. He answered the girls because he did not know my any better and spoke in a dreamy voice. "Her name is Miranda Castillo." My name had crossed over the lips of most of the people in my village, either out of admiration or in pay. Shout out, Dang, Grace Claveria, uh, welcome po, and hopefully you just have to listen to me, okay? And I just shout out your name every time someone visits me, okay? I had passed the house where he lives twice a day, once in the morning on the way to school, and again in the afternoon on my way home when classes had finished. The house belonged to his uncle, whom he was staying with. Your father stared at me through the window each and every time I pass by. Back in those days, I was just a little shyer than I am now. Your father had just completed his master's degree in teaching and decided to spend some time at his uncle's home for holiday before beginning his new career as a teacher. He could think of no better way to pass the time than by watching me walk along the dirt road to and from school. After weeks of watching me walk past his uncle's farm, your father happened to finally meet me at one of his cousin's parties. He arrived at the house and followed the sound of the loud music and boisterous laughter outside to the courtyard. The heavy night air was lightened by the sweet scent of sampaguita flowers and nearby garden. I took myself away from my mother's story to imagine a white flower, wondrous smell, and inhale it all in, if only in my imagination. My mother continued with her story. In the days of old, women who could not afford the luxury of buying a bottle of perfume would crush the fragrant white petals of sampaguita flowers, mixing it with oil and then massaging it into their skin. Actually, guys, it's really, I tried this and I tried to have, when I was in the Philippines, I tried this sampaguita flower because we have a lot of sampaguita flowers in Dumaro. And it's really work. All you have to do, just, get the petals of sampaguita and then uh, fresh, and then you grind them, or and then put some oil like coconut oil or any oil, or or baby oil, and then after that just leave it to soak in, and then you drain it, and then you apply that to your skin, and it's really good. Okay. I took myself away from my mother's story to imagine a wondrous smell, and as I inhale it in, if only in my imagination. My mother continued her story. In those days, women who can't afford the luxury of buying a bottle of perfume would crush fragrant white petals of sampaguita flowers, mixing it with oil, and then massage it into their skin. This can lure many men, including your father. When he made his entrance into the house, he noticed me straight away. I was sitting in the far corner of the courtyard, surrounded by a group of females, friend I met that night at that party. I could see that he desperately wanted to speak to me, but he waited and took his time. Slowly working his way through the crowd, pushing to say hello to the old friends and relatives, patting them on the back, and briefly shaking their hands. He gave me the impression that he was focusing on each of the people he was talking to, but never left the corner of his eyes. I watched him as he watched me. As he got closer to me, I could see that he was posturing for me, trying to look important and or athletic. My mother giggled with the remembrance of the first meeting. I smiled at first and joined my mother in a good laugh. I said, I can just imagine my father trying to look more important than he was at that time anyway. My mother continued, although your father was short in stature, he made up for any lack of height with his infectious personality. His energy was so contagious, he automatically drew people close to him. Just as the perfume scent of sampaguita flowers drew men to the women. Horatio was a sort of man that everyone just wanted to know and be around with. He had a gift for putting people at ease and making whomever he was talking to feel like they are the only person in the room, and that includes me. There was a shift in the atmosphere when your father strolled into the courtyard and began to make his way towards me. I could feel the warm breeze blowing across my skin, which made the hair of my arm stand up for attention. Goosebump. My heart fluttered as he got closer. Even though I was surrounded with a group of chattering friends, their voices quickly faded, and the wind and the only sound I could hear was clicking from his footstep as he approached me. My heart began to beat faster, and my face began to flush from the anticipation. Although I was locked in his gaze, he only really come into my line of vision as all my friend backed away and allowed him to approach me. Your father, then stick picture, come into my focus as he got closer to me. I could see my future through his eyes. His heart-shaped lips parted to reveal a knowing smile full of promise and hope. My father took a drink of her morning tea, shade her eyes from the sun, and continued. Your father thought I was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen in his life. Once we finally meet at the party, we were able to talk. He told me that my skin was like a hot cup of espresso. I explained to him I had inherited my darkest color from my Spanish parents. I love your eyes, Miranda. He gasped. He goes at me. He said they look as green as the jungle, and he could see the wild animal in them. He also commented how my lips were red as fresh picked berries. He then stepped closer to me and realized my eyes were actually light brown and green. I laughed at him for his honest mistake. We ended up spending the entire evening talking to each other and learning more and more about one another person. By the end of the evening, we both felt as thought we knew each other for many, many years. Horatio was 16 years older than me, but despite our glaring age difference, we realized we had more in common with each other than with people our own age. My mother stopped her story, looked at me, and frowns. I knew exactly what she was thinking. She was comparing her relationship then to the one I was in now. And it wasn't good. I turned to her with a proud expression and said, Mother, let's not talk about that now. I am enjoying your story. Let's let's stick to the past now before little Holly wakes up. She looked at me resigned but held her tongue and continued. When I met your father, I knew right then that an older man was for me. I knew that he would want to settle down and had a family and not mess around as much younger women would. Your father and I began spending more time with each other. Eventually, our friendship turned into something much more serious. Unfortunately, we had to meet secretly. As Horatio and I fell in love, I learned that my own parents had promised me to the son of the wealthy family from neighboring village. They forbid me to see him again. Of course, this did not stop us. We were too far away, too far gone by then, and nothing besides death could have dealt with, with a blow to our blossoming love affair. My parents' decree made my love for Horatio grow in leaps and bounds. She laughed aloud, and I did too. I knew exactly how determined my parents were, and together they would be unstoppable. She continued her story. The element of sneaking around, the possibility of getting caught only added another realm of excitement and passion to our relationship. It was at this point that your father began to sing for me, just like you do. I could sing when I was young. My mother touched my cheek with her elderly and dry hand. I rested my head on her shoulder like this. She adjusted herself in the chair and we both sat up. She returned to her story. As you know, your father played the guitar, and by this time I knew his singing voice well. And when I heard it traveling through the street, I would open my bedroom window and lie on my bed listening to his serenades as if they were tucking me tightly into the bed for the night. Even though we were apart, we were still bound together and joined sweetly by his wonderful music. Horatio and I were doomed, though, because the boys I was promised was already building our matrimonial home. Everyone was in on the plan but your father and I. When I learned of the arrangement, I became furious and refused to be forced into such ancient practice. My parents were asympathetic and told me I would do what they said. There was no choice, and I was given no option. Realizing that we had no other choice, Horatio and I, we had to elope. One evening, a week later, I was trying to go to sleep at night. Then I heard a light tapping from under my bedroom floor. As she had so many times in the past, your father snuck under the platform of the house, tapped the wooden floor above his head with a stone. I walked to the corner of my room and moved a small table which covered a smaller hole on the floor. In the floor, I knelt down to hear your father better. Then inspired, I tucked my pinky finger through the hole, and your father looped his own pinky around mine. He stopped her story to lock her own pinky fingers with mine. As the result, my heart swelled with joy. I thought how happy they were must have felt at that time. She continued, your father and I repeated this ritual whenever he visited me under the floor. After we were married, it became our thing. And we did it to show how much we love each other. And the last time we did, it was only a week before your father died. 5 weeks after the pinky ritual had begun, whispered to me under the floor one night. Tonight is the night, Miranda. Pack lightly, but bring what you need. I'll wait for you under the acacia tree. Without waiting for my consent, he was gone. I was not even sure what time he was coming back. So I swiftly packed and I would need what I would need for a honeymoon until a new life with my Horatio. Tears dripped down my face and onto my hand as they healed hers. My mother's body shook slightly and my heart was deeply sorry for her. I sat still, held her hands tightly and listened. She continued, I had anticipated the moment for weeks. I snatched 2 pillowcases and stuffed them with clothes and personal items. I left my room and looked down the hall to pair up the stairs that lead to my parents' room. With tears of emotion in my eyes, I turned left through the front door. I walked and then ran as fast as I could, not even looking behind me to see if anyone was following. My goal was the tree. I ran faster and faster with the 2 pillowcases dragging behind me. As I got closer to the tree, I saw your father standing there, his face beaming with the sight of me. As I go up to him, he kissed me full on the lips and took the pillows from me. Grabbing my hand, we ran even faster to the bus station before anyone's realized that we had bolted away. Can you imagine that? Grace Claveria is watching. Hello, Grace. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in into my show. And just thumbs up and comments so that I could see you. And okay, guys, we just continue our story. Horatio and I, Horatio had a time, so that we were only on the bus for 5 minutes before it pulled away from the station, taking the vehicle as far as it traveled. We joined more than 200 kilometers over across the Diwata mountain, where the road were considerably uncomfortable to travel over by bus and then jeepneys. We were most popular form of transportation in the Philippines. My mother laughed aloud at this memory, and I put my arms around her. I looked at the time and was surprised to see that we'd been talking for almost 1 hour. And now the sun was getting quite hot above us. I looked over to my mother and was surprised to see he was crying. I realized then that she really felt overwhelmed by my father's assassination. I softly said to her, "Mother, you can tell me more your story later in the day." She smiled and nodded. I knew it took a lot out of her talking to me like that. So many happy memories shattered by my father's meaningless death. She took my hands and gripped tightly. I was surprised by her strength. I was just about to get up and she continued her story. I guess that she just needed to have a good cry. She took a deep breath and polished off her tea, then must have been quite cooled down, and picked up her story from where she had stopped. At Mount Apu, the highest point of all the Philippines, Horatio and I stayed to his friend's relative's house in the town of Cotabato. We never intended to return home. I know I would be disowned by my parents and probably would never see them again, which is true. 1 year later, 1 minute before midnight, on October 6, 1958, our first child was born. I am sure you knew the name. Her name is Maria Sofia Castelo Vega. You have your father's eyes, you lucky child. She smiled and laughed at me as tightly, hugged at me as tightly as she could. I love you, mother. I love you more, she responded to me. We looked behind us to see that my daughter Hela was now awake and ran over to us for a hug. As I embraced my eldest daughter, I wonder what my parents' life was like when they were just starting out. At least they have each other. As of yet, I didn't have anyone I could honestly share my life with. As I mentioned in the past, we live in the Philippines. We just have to disregard this guy. Okay? My parents traveled by sea of Maria Cristina Falls, series of rolling plateau that sat elevation the 700 meters above the sea, offering relief relief from the often oppressive heat and humidity of the coastal lowland. My mother speaks English, Spanish, Ilonggo, and a few others dialect, but Cebuano was the native tongue in the most region, and Spanish-based Roman Catholic Church was still the dominant religion institution in Mindanao. We have to read the chapter 2, guys, which is, the chapter 1 is all about my mother. And when I was young woman, I used to talk to my father about his life with my mother and I with his parents, the Vega family, and the farm they used to live on. The farm was only a few miles away from our house at that time. And now then, he and I would take a short trip out to visit the old place. It had fallen into this disrepair over the years of no one had lived on the property for a long time. On one such visit, he and I strolled over to the old farm with my mother and siblings. They kept themselves busy out of the veranda, while my father and I sat on the old wooden bench next to the pond, which by this time was surrounded by the tall grass for years of neglect. There were also many trees about the area, guyabano, coconut, even several cocoa. While we sat on the old bench, stared off at the green water of the pond, listening to the music of bullfrog, I turned to him and asked, Father, can you tell me again the stories of when we were young family? My memories as a little girl are hazy at best. He gave me a little laugh and spoke up. The most memorable days of my life are when we lived back in Mindanao. But just beyond our narrow house we have rented, there were very large backyard where I built a home for the three of us. You told me about that already, and that was small frame house where I lived until I was about 2 years old, interrupted him excitedly. He clapped his hand and then give my cheek a little pinch. The sun was warm on the side of my face, he said. Yes, it is the house where your mother gave birth to both of you and your brother Flavius. When she became pregnant with your younger sister, I knew it was time to move to a bigger place. I decided to move us here at the farm, about 400 kilometers northwest of the little house in Mindanao. There were many more Christians living in the area. I thought it would be safer to live here, where the work opportunity would be much better for me. My own father was responsible for settling in this area originally, and that was another reason to move. It was easy. It wasn't that easy getting here, though. It had a great numbers of problems. Was it because of the Muslim? I queried. Yes, he nodded solemnly. The Muslim primarily inhabited in the island of Mindanao before the 1950s and after the World War II. Filipino government sponsored the mass Christian immigration into the most southern island of the Philippines. It was 10 years following the migration and tension between the Muslim and Christian drastically increased, and your mother and I felt the tension where we lived in Cotabato City. During the time, I was finding it very difficult to find employment because I was a Christian since the Muslim held most of the job opening. For this reason, I have decided to move from Mindanao here at the farm on Rojas, Dumaro, Capiz to escape the religious tension and successfully find work. I knew traveling by boat was the most common way because there were literally thousands of islands in our country, the Philippines. My father continued his story. We sold the house and as many of our belongings as possible, so we had money to travel, and we had to travel lightly, of course. The four of us boarded the ferry with our suitcase and dreamed of a better life here in Rojas. The ferry was fully booked and was packed full of passengers and their personal items. As soon that we got ticket and boarded, we held right up at the upper deck. He squished my hands as hard as possible. Your mother held into Flavius while our luggage was slugged over to our shoulder. We made our way to the cabin assigned to us, and once we were all settled and let your mother relax while the three of us took our tour to the ferry. I remember that, I said exactly. I ran ahead. You thought I might get lost, so you shouted angrily at me. Another passenger thought you were bad father. He remembered, he remembered too and had a good laugh. The children always remember the bad things. He patted my knees and added, you look back at me from where you stood on the overcrowded deck and cried. You were a very sensitive child. I tried not to sound too defensive. I think all small children are sensitive, father. My father touched my hand and smiled. Yes, I suppose that is true, especially with you. I playfully swat him and continued her story. You stopped crying right away when the loud horn of the ferry sounded, and then it slowly pulled away from the dock. You ran right over to the railing and pointed as we got farther and farther away from the shore. You stood there and stared right up until we could no longer see the shoreline where we had left. By then, all we could see water, the sky above, and was getting darker and darker. Then it began to rain, so we lumbered back to our cabin to see how your mother was making out. I didn't want to go back to the cabin, did I? No, once you found your spot along the railing, you just wanted to continue watching the water, which is true. I love blue water. Your brother became upset because the ferry was rocking back and forth, and then the thunder began to sound. But you immediately took his hands and calmed him down. You have always been a good with your brother. You always played together all through the years. My father laughed again and then continued. The ferry rocked hard all night, and the wave crashed into it from both sides. Your mother was terrified and clung into both of you, Flavius. Suddenly, we heard a captain announcing on the loudspeaker that the ferry has been seriously damaged and we had to load up in the lifeboat. Now, that was the first ferry trip I remember for a lifetime, I said, remembering as if it was just yesterday and not almost 15 years before I was even in high school. Passengers everywhere began to panic and I remained calm and got us all safely into the lifeboat. My father took my hands while his own shook in remembrance. Then lifeboat was quite crowded, but we got away before the ferry sank. We lost everything but our cash and the clothes on our back. We drifted in the ocean for 36 hours before the rescue finally found us. The Coast Guard picked us up and took us to the nearby island where we waited for 2 days before they sent newer ferry that picked up us to brought us here in Rojas. I was very concerned about your mother's pregnancy with all the excitement, but everything seems to turn out okay. We eventually arrived here at your grandparents' farm. My father got a very sad expression on his face, and I asked him what the matter was. She looked at me while still holding my hands. I have never told you this before, but your mother lost that baby. A week after we arrived here, he had a miscarriage, and we buried the little boy right on this farm. We looked across the long grass over where Flavius was currently playing with my sister on the balcony safely near my mother. I was shocked, even though it was happened long time ago. Was there a reason you never told us? He looked at me and replied, it was the pain of losing my second-born son, and I just didn't want to talk about it. Before you knew, 10, 15 years ago, gone by. Time goes fast anymore. I didn't know what to say, Father. I feel an acute sense of loss not knowing that. I could have had another brother, but he died before I ever knew him. I suppose learn I suppose learning about it now is a complete catastrophe. My father wiped the tears away and looked at his family over on the balcony and continued his story. Ever since your mother and I eloped, she never saw her parents again. I know it hurts her, but they made the decision for us. I'm gonna cry, guys. Because I have never seen my grandparents until they died. I know it hurts, but they made the decision for us. Then they tried to marry her off. Maybe one day we can meet them again and they can see all your children for the first time. You could all tell them how happy your mother is living with me and that she made the right decision all those years ago. I reflect, it's a sad situation growing up and never meeting my grandparents on mother's side and on her sibling or their families, but that is life, I suppose. He continued. We spoke of going back to visit, but we just can't see to do it. She left as young woman and she turned out okay. Wouldn't you say? I smiled. Yes, my mother is very happy with you and this farm and our family. My mother did love the farm. I never saw her and my father fight a day in their marriage life. This was what she wanted, and she was perfectly content. My father continued to work hard for us so that we could each have a great education and do better than he did. Although as a loving father has had set the perfect example, he had always been open-minded about my mother's feeling and her compassion for others, and they were perfect for each other. He looked, he looked at me and said, before we arrived here at the farm, we had so many difficulties dealing with people around us, but we learned to be patient and overcome all the trials and tribulation that face us as a couple. God's words had always been with us, the Bible our guide for life, and has always worked. What wonderful words flow from my father's heart. I always proud to be his daughter. A great portion of my father's income from farming went to our education. A good education was very important to Filipino people, and my father was no different. My big grandparents were not able to go to school when they were young because they worked their entire lives. Sorry guys, I'm gonna cry. Providing for their own family. Our section of the farm was all that remained because my father's siblings were not as prudent as he was, and they lost their share of the farm over the years. Obviously, they weren't very interested in farming in the first place. However, my father's parents did make sure their children each receive a good education. My father, as the second-born son, decided that he wanted to become a teacher and was very responsible, respectable, and highly regarded occupation. His two brothers each degree accounting and his sister also become a teacher. At the same time, she taught my father was able to manage his share of the farm. The only person without proper education is my mother. She was just a teenager when he eloped with my father and then 8 months later became a mother. She never had opportunity to finish high school, let alone study at the university. My grandfather, Diga, was very kind-hearted man and didn't care about my mother's lack of education. But his son was happy as long that his son is happy with her. Then my grandmother was happy as well. My grandfather is happy as well. However, my Vega grandmother was another story. She had a very hard time accepting my mother as her daughter-in-law because she was convinced that my mother was a gold digger. What another reason would have a 17-year-old want to marry a 33-year-old man? She also believed that my mother would not know how to properly care for a race or and raise the young family because she was just a teenager herself. To make matters even worse, the local men in the area started calling my mother the White Lady because of her fair Spanish skin and long black hair, long black curly hair. It was a Filipino suspicion that a white woman could only be seen by men who had cheated on their wives. This woman would appear in the moving cars and sit beside male drivers, asking them to take her home. However, the address she given the driver was dead end, a secluded cliffs or a broken bridge. My mother was often seen working nearly a bridge on my grandparents' property, and men would stop, watch her work. They might have wondered who was with she was with when the first saw her, but it didn't take them long to learn that she was married with several children. That being said, my grandmother and my mother did have a few things in common. They could each other trace their families back to Spain and spoke that language well. And and funny things was that only spoke language when they are fighting. They argue often about cooking, cleaning, and rearing us children. We learned many Spanish words from both of them over the years while we live at the farm. There, guys, the pan in front of where my father and I sat used to have a fence around it. I was, I was the reason for that. When I was 4 years old, I used to love chasing our family free-range chicken, the duck, or anything with wings all over the property. I wanted to see them flying like angels of my dreams. But instead, they were terrified of me. One day, my parents were out at the front of the house while I was at the backyard in hot pursuit of a silver lace window. I had, I had, it had rained heavily and went a week before. Such that, such that out of the pan, the funniest we have ever seen. The chicken tried to thwart my pursuit by flying across the middle of the pan. Having no fear, I decided to follow it straight through and into the pond. It did not take me long to realize that the pond was deeper than I was told. Before I knew it, I stumbled in deeper until dirty water completely covered me. I went under. I panicked and struggled to get back up and tried to breathe through the muddy water. My grandmother eventually saw me from the kitchen window and screamed for my father. By the time he, be, he come to my rescue, I was already floating on the surface of the water as the chicken chucked by the water edge. My mother, who was my mother was heavily pregnant with Hannah, almost fell down the steps, leaping from the back of the house to the pond. My father waded into the water, snatched me up, and took me to the grassy edge. He looked He looked to the sky and said, God, please be with me to save my daughter. And then he began to proceed with artificial respiration. He squished my nose and breathed into me. Once, twice, and on the third time, I spatted out pond water all over his worried face. He smiled then, and then suddenly became across and yelled, What are you doing playing in the pond? My mother was at his side by the time and scolded him. She picked me up, and only then I realized that was just happened. I had no recollection though, from time I went under the water to the moment I was revived, which was about 6 minutes. There was hugging, crying, and then the blame. My grandmother automatically blamed mother for not watching me carefully enough, but my father tried to hush her. Sophia is safe, there is no need to blame. My mother kissed me on the forehead and said, I will never give up on you, daughter of mine. I love you so much. There was followed by uncontrollable tears of happiness, which I could see in my parents' eyes. Much later, I was older, my father explained he had named back at the time. Never give up until you have made your wishes come true. The road to success is there. Once you are on it, don't let anyone ruin it for you. If you ever feel weak, you just need determination. Let your principle rules your mind. Use your head and heart equally. Educate yourself well so you can go anywhere with pride. I looked at my father with great admiration and took a deep breath of satisfaction. We both stood up from the old wooden bench and joined the rest of the family on the other side of the pond near the house, looking tall and strong. There, guys, we finished the second chapter, and we will try to gives me goosebump and also teary eyes reading, and but also I'm sad about my mother that she never went back to see her parents before they died, and also she never had an opportunity to meet the oldest and the younger sister before she died as well. And only few of my mother's relatives I've seen, but I'm happy that some of my cousin I meet and they come and see me in the Philippines many years ago before I came to Australia. And now I think I need a reunion. I wish they could read this, listen to this book, and have an opportunity to set up a family reunion. Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna stop here. Oh no, it's only we need more. I'm gonna read one more chapter, okay? Back when my father was still alive, there were many times that my mother and I would sit on the veranda of our farmhouse and wait for him to return home from his week of teaching. It was usually dark when he left home on the Monday morning, and then dark again when he returned home on the Friday night. We eagerly waited for him to either walk up on our lone way or possibly get dropped off if he was lucky enough to catch a ride. Fortunately for us, on this particular night, there was a full moon in the sky, so we easily see him arrive home after his work week. I really love the full moon, my mother commented, and as we enjoy the cold air, and a cup of warm tea. I wonder who will see fathers first, you or me, I said. It will be a close race, Sophia. It would not be hard to see come up over the race on the road. I'm sure he will be happy walking tonight. It is so bright, it is so beautiful out there. Everyone else was inside the house sleeping. It had been an early night for Flavio and my sisters. I always loved the night sound, the frog in the pond, and the crickets over the long grass, and the sound of fluttering wings as both bats and owl flew overhead. The night was bursting with life. It's a person took a time to notice. At, at the moment I was observing the fireflies dance about the tree in our front yard. They were so beautiful to watch. As my mother took a sip of tea, she cleared her throat and softly spoke. Would you like to hear a little more of my story while we wait? I finished my gulp of tea and nodded my mother. Yes, of course, mother. I always enjoy hearing the stories, even if it is a third or fourth times I heard them. I laughed and she tried to blindly swat me. She grinned. When your father and I when your father and I are dead and buried, these stories will be all in you have of us. So don't forget that. It is your duty to pass them to the next generation. I nodded my head with agreement to what she had said. She patted a small pillow on her lap, facing me continue her story. I felt very troubled that we were intruding on your father's relatives where we stayed after we eloped. I was pregnant with you and we didn't have any money saved up. Your father had a decent job, but it was just enough money for our daily expenses. We were each missing our respective family. I pray continuously that God understood why we did what we did. It was not a it was not to punish my parents but and family, but to preserve the love I had for your father. He was the only man I ever wanted. Pascual, the man my parents wanted me to marry, had much more money, but I knew I would have never been truly happy because I did not love him. At least you could be miserable in style, I said to my mother. I joked. For the second time in less than 30 minutes, my mother blindly swat at me. She retorted, you always have the answer to everything, don't you, Sophia? I smirked as she rolled her eyes and continued. As I was saying, I wanted God to forgive me for running away from my parents' home and elope with your father to start a family of our own. For that reason, I didn't want God to be angry with us. She placed her hands on the railing of the veranda and leaned forward as if that motion would make her see any better. The moon suddenly disappeared under some clouds and it became darker. My mother began to worry. I could see her flown lines in the line of the shadow. I placed my hands on her waist and said, everything will be fine, mother. Tell us some more of your story and he will be here before we knew it. She clapped her hands and laughed. All right, I will do that. She took another sip of her tea and continued. Even though life was difficult in the beginning, we were still happy because we were together in love. However, when we found out that I was pregnant, he became ecstatic with joy. I had never seen a man so happy before in my life. As soon as I began to show, your father parade me around in the village so that people could see what he have done. As soon other family would become complete. When we began the walk home, someone in the ox cart insisted that they take us home so they would not have to walk. I would not have to walk. That is one thing about your father. He would always make a lot of friends, but he never had much money. My mother was beaming from what he was telling me. She was so in love with my father, it was easy to see. Even now, in the moonlight, she looked young and still had that innocent look in her eyes. It was like an electricity that lit up the air itself. It was its maybe the fireflies up the trees. Looking up the moon, which was visible again, and wonder what life had in store for me. Now difference would be from the life of my parents. I would find a man like my father, fall in love, and start my own family as my parents did. My voice broke quiet that night. It's so nice now that the nighttime clouds are disappearing and allowing us to see old moon again in all of his glory. I smiled at my mother. Oh yes, she began nodded excitedly. I stepped up and pointed up into the sky. Look, mother, shooting star. She turned her head quickly and see. Yes, I see it. It's beautiful, Sophia. Quick, make a wish on that star and the wish will come true. She seems a quite less melancholy now and had emeraldly back in her voice. Still standing, I said aloud, I wish my father will be safe on his journey home tonight. Instead of looking pleased, she had horribly looked on her face. Oh, Sophia, you should not make this wish in your head. You should make this wish in your head, not so everyone can hear it. Now it will not come true. I looked at my mother and covered my mouth in disbelief. Okay then, I closed my eyes and looked like I was thinking, and when I opened then I said, I made my new wish up in my head. I won't tell you anymore ever. My mother smiled. Now your wish will be granted. Suddenly everything was good again. She continued. I saw falling stars when I was pregnant with you, and I wished I would be able to give you a good life, that your father and I would remain devoted to each other in order to give you proper childhood. I grinned. Your wish come true, didn't it, mother? Yes, so far it has, she laughed. Your father was working when you were born. So when he saw you for the first time, you were already 2 hours old. He was so happy to hold you and sing to you, and you seemed to enjoy it. A year after you were born, I became pregnant again. It was then we decided to move here from Mountain Village. I knew we would be safer. It would be a good to be close to your father's family. Here in Rojas, we both knew I could never go home again. Somehow at the time, Flavius' birth, I received a letter from my own mother. He told me never to come home and would cost my mother her life for the shock of seeing me again. As it turned out, my mother died anyway without ever seeing me or any of my children before she died. I feel so sad and sorry, but it was out of my control. I am happy now that I have you all by my side. She looked at me intently and said, I appoint that I never interfere with your love life as long as you are happy and you treated well by your husband. Just as she finished her sentence, we both saw my father walking towards us, safe and sound, just as I have wished for the falling star. My Bega grandparents own several hundred acres of land. They grow and harvest coconut, sugarcane, coffee, cocoa, and rice. They even raise fish, and the fishery was one of my favorite places to hang out. I found it fascinating how they were processed from being fresh cut to being gutted, sliced, and salted and shipped out to the market. I spent a great deal of my childhood on this farm. Growing up there, I discovered two very important things. Firstly, I was allergic to the plant life of the countryside, and second, the cure for my allergies could be found in the very thing that caused it in the first place, nature. My grandparents knew of many natural remedies that helped me breathe better and not sneeze so often. The house and the outbuilding were surrounded by lush green vegetarian, which included sacred baliti tree. My mother warned us all when we were young about this tree. They were not very tall, but the roots move in and out and the outside of the trunk to the leaves. And they were amazing to climb. The leaves at the top of the tree were like canopies over the incredible climbing object. I remember being quite young and seeing such a climbing challenge in front of me. Was excited to climb it, but before I ever grabbed a branch and heard my mother scared voice, "Don't climb into that tree, Sophia, it's dangerous. There are demons deep inside who will grab your legs and pull you down into the ground. You will disappear forever, and I won't be able to help you." A couple of years later, when I was a little older, I was walking home from the school after a challenging half day, and my little brother meet me out on the dirt road near our house. Flavio said to me, "Our mother is mad at you for something, or other back at the house. You are going to be in the big trouble," and then laughed and ran away. I had no idea why she would be mad, but right then and there I decided this would be a grand day to hide up in the nearby baliti tree. It had to be better than facing her after a hard day at school. Like I knew I would be the like I knew it would be. The tree was wonderful to climb. It was if I was inside the tree itself. Up I went, making my way to the last tree top where I got cozy, basking in the sun warm rays. I ended up falling asleep in the treetop for hours. While I sleep, I dreamed not of demons but the fairies that rescued me from the evil tree. My father and brother come looking for me, fearing the worst. Knowing my previous record of accomplishment, when I finally come down from the tree, my parents did not have to punish me. I had been sunburned. That was punishment enough. I never did it again. My grandparents' farm was my endless playground. In another part of the world, kids had jungle gym to play on. In the Philippines, my world was the jungle, which was literally our gym. The children from the nearby village, I would climb the stocky mango tree and then fasten dried banana trees as between two trees, created wings which we spent for hours. Whenever there was a full moon up in the sky, the other children and I would play hide and seek together the full lights. My favorite hide spot was as a child was at the top of the coconut tree. I was quite small and it took time for me to sneak me up the tree. But once I was up at the top, I could wedge myself in between the abundant leaves and no one could find me. They might know I was hiding in the tree, but they could not figure out which tree until I zoomed back down and got home safe. Instead of riding by a tricycle like the other children across the globe, I rode on the thick and hairy neck of wild water buffaloes that roam our property looking for food. I would grasp their horn like a handlebar, and hang on to their life. Another favorite pastime of ours was swimming in the river, which ran alongside our farm property. Instead of the plastic cold noodles children use in the modern world, we have used our stick of bamboo to keep us afloat and in the marshy water. Unfortunately, I had bad reputation when it comes to water. I, I come close to drowning at the ferry sank when I was a toddler. Then there was a pond incident when I was 4, and the third call was in 1964 when I was 6 years old. It had been a very rainy days, and almost out of the adults were busy working at the farm. Several of my close friend and I decided to be great idea to go for a swim in the river because of the rain. I had been split second decision. I did not even think of asking for permission or letting my parents know that what we were up to. I had a lot of freedom as a child and just did things on the whim. Usually with this disastrous result. And most important thing I knew I had to do what gets what to do was to get home in time for dinner bell. If I did that, I stayed within the good grace with my parents. My friends and I been traveling through the jungle collecting bamboo stick, and then we reached the raging river edge. We looked at each other, grim, and stripped off all our clothes except for our underwear. Jump into the muddy water with our bamboo stick. Once we were in, we kicked our legs practically and held into the stick, racing each other across the river. Several other kids spot us, make sure there was no cheating. My best friend growing up was Faye. She was my partner that day. We screamed and laughed, and we paddled together with our stick with our big brace. As I saw her bamboo stick slot pass me by. Quickly, I looked behind at me, Fee head barely above the water as her hand flashing above. She was struggling to breathe while the other children just stared blankly at her. I turned back and swam against the current to try to reach her before she drowned. In the process, I myself lost my bamboo stick, but was able to grab her flying, flying hand and held on tight. As soon as she realized that I had her, she grabbed my other hands and climbed up on my back in the effort to save herself. As she did so, she pushed me below the surface and my mouth filled with seat-reading water. I popped my head up for the second and gasped for air just as she popped me back down again. I tried to get my breath but swallowed water instead and then my survival instinct kicked in. I fought her, I fought her taut and knelt under the water to break away. I tried to save her, but she was going to kill me for my kindness. But this time, the other children sprang into the action and held their bamboo stick out to us. He grabbed a stick and was pulled up to the shore by two kids. Once I was free of Faye, I was able to dog paddle and get my breath and bearing. The kids yelled my name, so I swam to their side of the river. Completely exhausted, as soon as I stood up with my shaky legs and looked up across the river, I saw my mother and all the other villages staring at us with their jaw and groaned. I felt relief for about 30 seconds until I saw my mother's furious expression. That was the day where my social freedom began to shrink. After the reverse incident, my grandmother's attempted to involve me more in daily farming routine. Then I was in the teens. She thought it was to be a wonderful idea to have me experience sugarcane processing from the cutting in the field to the basic processing on the farm. The lead hands worker instructed me to wear long shade shirt to entirely cover my skin and thick gloves to protect my hand. I scuffled at him. I didn't need all that. I was tough farm girl. And besides, I knew everything and told them it wasn't necessary. They laughed at me, but they did not care. I took a long curved knife and began to cut the sugarcane stalk. What I didn't know that the husk of the cane was very sharp, and the fibers worked their way right into my skin, which over several hours became very irritated, and I started scratching the areas that were annoying me. The scratching gave me a horrible reaction, and my skin quickly became red and became blistered. Tigas ng ulo kasi. When my mother saw me and what I have done to my neck and arms, she began screaming at me in Spanish. The rust from my scratching lasted 3 weeks and was then replaced by mini and slightly scar. My classmates at school teased me until I cried every day. My grandmother never made me cut sugarcane again. Huh? My next farm adventure was out in the rice field where which were located near the fishery. It was harvest time at the farm, and this was the real social working occasion. I liked the idea of harvest because I could be around other girls my age who become out who be coming out from many different villages to earn some easy money. I became friends with many of these girls and they would invite me to fiestas back in their village. One morning, my grandmother asked me if I could help the girls harvest the rice. This sounded like the fun plus I could bond with some of the girls I worked with. I was given a small sickle, and I knew well enough to cut the stem 20 centimeters above the water level. Holding them in my thumb pointing upwards away from the blade, I collected the top cutting in the large wicket basket which hung from my shoulder. As I cut the stem and I pulled the top away from the water, my ankle and lower legs began to feel itchy. However, I ignored it as long as I could, then finally reached down and scratched instead of the feeling relief. I feel something slimy. I pulled my foot out of the water and saw little brown creatures attached to my skin. Then I tried to pull one off stretched like a rubber band until it snapped off my skin. It was then I realized that I lost some of my serious skin as the trickle of blood dripped from the wound and into the water. I kept calm. I showed my grandmother my lower leg. She surprised me with a scream and ran away from me yelling at the top, "There are leeches in the water. Everybody get out." I immediately began to scream as well and ran after her because I didn't know what else to do. All of the other girls reacted exactly the same way, and in time the rice field was completely empty. They were sitting in the nearby meadow extracting leeches from their legs. A little later, we learned that there was a breach in the wall of my grandparents' fish farm, and water leaked from the wall in the rice field, bringing it many hungry leeches. The problem was solved by wearing ankle shoes and canvas around our lower legs. Later the week, during the evening, my grandmother told me a story about what happened to one of the girls who had been working on the rice field several years before. There had been leeches in the rice field, and she that she was unaware and did not care. Several leeches apparently wiggled their way up to her legs, burrowed their way up inside her vagina. They got into her the womb and multiple, causing her to look to look pregnant, and she later died a very painful death. The next time I went into the rice field, I wore ankle shoes and canvas leggings. Whenever I got a scar, either from scratching or from pulling leeches on my skin, my grandmother gave me a special homemade remedy to help heal and lighten them up. The physical scar of that time had long since faded, but the emotion ones will always be with me. See, guys? Now, guys, I think I have to stop here. It's almost 2 hours, and we're gonna go on the chapter 3 next time, and hopefully, people who haven't read this will continue watching for my next story. And at the moment, my back is really starts to I could feel the pain now in my back, and hopefully with this will continue a bit later. I can have something to eat, and then I'll come back. Okay, but I have to end this video, and hopefully you will uh, you will come back to me again later. But I think I have to read the chapter 3 tomorrow, and I have to do this now every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, Australian time, which is early in Philippines, and finish it before lunch, which is I don't know what time in the Philippines. And we're gonna do it again this afternoon. Maybe when I finish, I'm gonna do some uh, record video, and just have to upload it, and or we can do live again. Okay, guys. Thank you. Patty Cruz is watching. Sharon TV, and I'm happy that that everyone, my friends is watching. Patty, basin natin. And thank you din kay uh, Shan Shanway Fam Fam Family TV. Yes, darling. I'm gonna end this now.
Are you talking or?
No, I'm doing live, darling. I'll finish it now.